Welcome. Another edition Dropkick Basement into your ears and hopefully your brains. My name is Mike Madden, purveyor of the Dropkick Basement, and my co-host on the other end is Tommy Schultz. Tommy, how are you in the summer?
Summer's getting rolling, Mike, and you know what summer means. The blockbusters are about to drop.
Yeah.
Get your popcorn and your Coca-Cola, because we're going to the movies, baby.
Going to the movies this week. Yes, you're right. A good topic to discuss. Pro wrestling in cinema. Now, when Tom brought this to the production table, it was under the guidance of it's going to be some theatrical or regular movies about pro wrestling, and then also a few documentaries if we can throw them in there for context. So yes, some cinema quality films are in here, quote unquote, and then some more obscure movies I'm sure we're going to talk about, and then there's a few that are more of the documentary style that are worth checking out. I would say as it's gotten more in fashion to be a wrestling fan and a filmmaker who is a wrestling fan, I will point that out. The last maybe 20 years has been so much better for wrestling's portrayal in movies than it was in the priors, because if you go back and watch, I think this is more on like TV shows and how they handled wrestling in the 80s and 90s. But even in certain movies, like when it was showcased, they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about when they were like, hey, we're going to put a wrestling scene in this, or like there's going to be a wrestling element to this show that we're doing, this sitcom, and they all just absolutely sucked. So in my brain, I think the last 20 years have been sort of a reawakening of people that actually know a thing or two about pro wrestling have gotten back into creating content, movies, writing scripts that honor, the fandom of pro wrestling, the athleticism, the in-ring, and the storytelling element that pro wrestling is, for sure.
Yeah, and when I threw this idea out there, I wanted to include both the best and the worst.
Yeah.
Of what Hollywood has brought to us, us wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And what they think of what we love so much.
Yes.
And when I thought of including the documentary aspect of this in this topic, it's more so because the representation in true films has been few and far between. As a wrestling centric main topic. I mean, it may have been touched on here and there, but the documentaries that I focused on in my list were not, I guess you would say, like based on like a promotion or a WWE centric documentary. Let's just say that WWE produced documentary.
Right.
I wanted like a director's object view of wrestling in some shape, form, or fashion.
So let's start with those. Let's hit the documentaries first.
I would say there's two that kind of you could say are like the baseline for the modern day documentary. There's I would say the widest range and had a theatrical release would be Beyond the Mat, which showed us so much in terms of independent wrestling. Former stars, and then actually inside, which that's the first time we ever got this kind of inside look inside of the at the time WWF locker room,
Right, the locker
of
room.
a current active wrestler being focused. That you see, you know, creative meetings
Yeah, yeah.
with Vince McMahon, and you see that behind the scenes, and you know there had been exposés or featured pieces on television, but we never got this in long form before.
It was the first. Right, you're right. It was the first time that you were allowed backstage. It was the first time that that there was that access to talk to the men and women in wrestling about what got them into it. This is, again, this is like, it's more standard now, and WWE certainly took a lot of lessons from Beyond the Mat and are kind of running with that, even with when they released this unscripted series. But you're in 99 when this came out, and most of it was filmed in 97 and 98. But when it comes out in 99, it's at the peak of the wrestling boom. You have three viable companies, two of which were represented pretty strongly in Beyond the Mat. So, and there's no, there's no shortage of main event guys that you're watching, get covered, interviewed, featured in this. Mick Foley, The Rock, Hunter and Chyna were featured in it. Vince himself is interviewed for it. They're talking to Paul Lee on the ECW side. So there's a lot of very interesting and innovative stuff at that time that you could sit in a movie theater just because wrestling was so over. It was like, this is pro wrestling, the movie, and you're going to be able to see so much access backstage. Then again, just like any good pro wrestling show, like, it does have to tug at your heartstrings, and it does have to give you maybe the dark side of what the business is. And Jake Roberts struggling with his addiction and with his inability to leave pro wrestling because it's easy money for him and he's still a name. He famously says in that at one point, he's like, you saw the crowd out there. I could run for mayor and win an election tonight based on the reaction that I got. So there's that. That's sort of like, it's still real to me, damn it. And but also, like, on the sort of depressing side, as you're watching Mick Foley get his head caved in and his family is sitting at ringside. And that's the type of thing where, as great as the movie is, I don't know if it is shined in that great of a light nowadays.
I do think
because of that.
And that's the thing that comes along with documentaries is you're at the behest of what the filmmaker's idea of this is. It's never actually an objective look at whatever their subject is. It's the intention that they want to present that.
Yeah, it's a story they want to tell, right?
And so I think that even when it comes to the smaller story in that film of Mike Modest, it's really kind of showing that he's on this uphill battle that kind of seems hopeless in the end. Mm-hmm. That's really going nowhere. So I agree with you that it doesn't portray the industry in the best light. But I do think that it was instrumental in the way that wrestling documentaries would get made moving forward, and the popularity of them. And while we're on that, actually, I know that I said that was like maybe the first time you saw it, but in reality, the first time that we got backstage in one of these kind of presentations, and I don't know what the release date of the film was, but Wrestling with Shadows was actually was actually filmed prior to Beyond the WWE stuff that happened in Beyond the Mat. So,
very good call.
You know what I mean? So that's another one that was on my list of like, it is a great movie. It's a great documentary, but again, there's a clear narrative that is trying to be portrayed
Yeah.
through that. Which, whether you agree with Brett's take on everything or what, however you view that situation, they do an incredible job of getting you the behind the scenes footage of what is probably one of the most iconic moments in the history of
Oh
wrestling.
yeah, yeah. The controversy, everything that went down that could be presented was part of that film, and that's, I think, maybe because it didn't. I don't have any notes on it, and I've seen it a million times. Maybe because it didn't get a theatrical release, I didn't really want to kind of put it in this context. But it's still like, it's very important, and I think it was like, it's so Brett point of view, and I love
Yeah.
Brett. Brett's tremendous, and I think Brett does like tell a lot of, like, you do have sympathy for Brett and his side of the story. And I don't know, like, it would be good to kind of like, there wasn't enough talking to Owen or to Davey. I would like
Yeah.
to have gotten what they were thinking at the time. Like, hey, obviously we know that, like, that Davey left at the same time that Brett did, because of what happened. But Owen went back to work there, 4 weeks later, and, and carried on as best he could. But, and you see some flashes of them, like, all sitting together, like, in the locker room or in the limo, like, on the way home, and they're all saying that they're going to quit and all that stuff. But, like, it would be great to, like, have had that filmmaker sit down with some other family members other than Julie, and kind of, like, see, well, in the leading up to Montreal, like, what does Owen think was going to happen? Like, that's the funny part, is like, you hear the whispers backstage about, like, oh, it's going to be a schmaz, or you're gonna run in and it'll be a DQ, and we'll figure out a different way to get the belt off at some point. But it's also kind of like, well, if you had sat down with him, like, it would have fleshed out the story a little bit better, I think.
Exactly.
From the perspective, and it wouldn't just be tunnel vision of Brett, who I'm just going to say, like, his contributions to it are tremendous, and you do have a lot of, like, a lot of empathy for him at the very end of it. So that's a good pick. It's a good one to throw in there. I think the only other documentary that I remember went way back to the 80s, and it's more of a mockumentary than a documentary. There was a film called I Like to Hurt People.
I don't think I've ever even heard of this.
So this is released in the mid 80s. Weird as it seems, it was released in the mid 80s, and it is it's primarily based in Detroit, and it features the Sheik.
Oh,
And it's a kayfabe documentary where this reporter is following the Sheik as the Sheik is preparing for his main event matches in Detroit against Andre, Dusty Rhodes, Abdul the Butcher, Terry Funk, and there's a kayfabe element to it. So there's some acting that goes on to it, but there's also a lot of fan interaction where you see the fans like having a visceral response to the Sheik throwing fireballs, and you're getting a lot of really cool crowd shots of that. So it's a little bit kayfabe, a little bit shoot. Was only released on video cassette, and I think all of the footage is from, like, the mid 70s. So, like, Andre does not look like Andre did in '85. He's moving around a lot quicker. This is like Dusty in '77, so is a little bit slimmer of a Dusty, but it's fun. Like, it's there. I don't know if it's. I know there's, like, clips of it that you can find on YouTube. I would love for, like, one of these, like, Shout Factory, revival houses to say, like, all right, well, wrestling's kind of popular again. Let's get the rights to this and put this on like, Amazon or put it on like Netflix as a goof to see if anybody would like it. But that's one that I just remember like renting as a kid because it was in the wrestling section, and it had like the cover was Dusty Rhodes and I think the Sheik, and it was like a silhouette, and I was like, this looks like a wrestling match. I'm gonna rent this, and it blew my mind. I was like, I don't know if I'm prepared for this.
That sounds awesome. I really want to see that now.
Yeah. It's fun. I'll put it that way. It's a very unique watch. So let's so we're gonna leave the documentary part of the film festival, and let's get into the next genre of film. Let's tackle some comedies. Let's talk about some wrestling comedies.
There are some what were attempted to be wrestling comedies.
Okay. Well,
so where do you want to start with this?
I'm gonna listen. I always like to give you the history of pro wrestling. I'm gonna go the comedy. The first wrestling movie that I watched, the first comedy about wrestling that I watched was the 1986 cult classic Body Slam.
Oh.
And Body Slam, starring Dirk Benedict and Tanya Roberts.
Don't know who either of those people are.
Dirk Benedict was on the A-Team.
Okay.
Tanya Roberts was, I think, like Charlie's Angels, like the later day Charlie's Angels. But the wrestlers involved with this, a veritable who's who, and some who's that of pro wrestling. Roddy Piper is in this. This was when he had a brief time away from WWE or WWF at the time. After the first WrestleMania, like he took some time off and he filmed this. So Roddy Piper, the Tonga Kid, Islander Tama, the Samoan Savage, whatever you want to call them. They're actually a tag team in this film. The film is based around a concert promoter, Dirk Benedict, who is kind of down on his luck, and he can't catch a break, and he wants to impress Tanya Roberts, and he runs into this wrestling show, and he has the brilliant idea of promoting rock and roll and wrestling in the same venues, and he's got his band called Kick that plays like during wrestling matches, and the tag team that he ends up managing is Roddy Piper and the Tonga Kid. I forget their names in the film, and they run into the antagonists of the story, which are managed by Captain Lou Albano. Okay,
of course.
As the bad guy character called Captain Lou Morano. A real far cry from it. And
creative.
His tag team is the Barbarian and Tijo Khan.
Who?
Tijo Khan.
Who is that?
Oh, Tijo Khan's a great 80s wrestler. He was from Singapore. They claimed he was from Singapore. He had sunken in black eyes. He had a little ponytail that came out of the back. He was in Jim Crockett Promotions. He was part of Paul Jones's army. He did team up with the Barbarian in Jim Crockett Promotions in 86 and 87. And yeah, Tijo Khan was terrible in the ring, and I was like, how the fuck did they pick Tijo Khan out of anybody? But even then, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. You got cameos by Ric Flair. You got cameos by Bruno Sammartino. Who else is in there? The girl who was in the TV show Life Goes On, Kelly Martin, was the main guy's daughter. Charles Nelson Riley. Yes, there's a chance to say Tijo Khan and Charles Nelson Riley in the same sentence in the same cast. The midget actor Billy Barty. It's wacky. The Samoans are in it. It's subtly racist, very goofy, slapsticky, but it was that was the first pro wrestling comedy that I remember seeing, and I was like, yeah, this is up my alley. It's so dumb that it's good. Really recommend if you haven't had a chance, viewers
I have
and
not seen that.
listeners
I have
and
not seen
Tom,
that.
please track down Body Slam. I think you can
I'm gonna
watch
have
it.
to.
I think you can watch it on some free streaming network out there. What are you thinking of comedy-wise when it comes to pro wrestling?
So there's two that come to mind. One that definitely wasn't made a comedy, but when I watched it for the first time in 2005, it was for sure a comedy.
Right.
And that would be No Holds Barred.
Yeah. That's not really supposed to be funny, is it?
No, that's what I mean. It is one of the all-time worst films
It's bad.
ever
Yeah.
made.
Yeah.
And it spawned the main event of a pay-per-view, strictly based off the film. But
It was a long program that those assholes worked together.
yes, yeah.
You know?
Zeus was around. Tiny Lister got like a whole year run as a heel in WWF based off the release of this tragically awful. But to me, I love it because it's just so so bad.
Yeah.
It's one of those movies that's just so bad that it's good.
All right. Hey, listen, Stan Hansen's in it.
Yeah, Stan Hansen's in it. Hulk Hogan makes the man shit himself.
Yeah.
It's got all sorts of hijinks.
Some love. There's some love interest. Joan Severance.
Love.
Yeah.
And you get Tiny Lister.
You do. Yeah. Kind of like monosyllabic. Not really any lines. Tiny
Sickest
Lister.
haircut of all time. Bald head with lightning bolts shaved into the side of them. Just an all-around bad movie. But the wrestling comedy that I grew up on, another very bad but has a special place in my heart, is Ready to Rumble.
It's okay. Go ahead. Tell me.
I know you hate it.
I hate it. It's insulting.
I know you hate it. Listen. So this movie came out in 1999, 2000.
Yeah.
I
think it was filmed in 99 and it came out in 2000. Yeah.
So I'm 11 years old.
Right up here. This is right up your alley.
So this is right up my alley.
This is like Body Slam was for me. Okay.
Exactly.
Now I get it. All right.
There's fart jokes. I get to see a slew. You get Goldberg, DDP, Sting,
Bigelow.
Bigelow. You get all the hits.
Van Hammer was in the movie.
Van Hammer.
Yep.
And then you give me Joey Pants.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And fucking the King.
Oliver Platt.
Oliver Platt.
Unk from The Bear. Yeah.
Two historically great actors.
They are good. Yeah.
Alongside the cast of Buff Bagwell and Kurt Hennig and David Arquette and that guy
Rose McGowan.
Oh, and Scott
Conn.
Scott Conn.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
It's
unreal.
Yeah.
We get to see the triple cage on the big screen.
That's a good point. It just insults wrestling fans. I hate to say it. Like if it was just
horrible.
If it was just based on like some of the in-ring stuff, and I hate like the Pantoliano's character is just basically like, oh well, why don't you just have Eric Bischoff be Eric Bischoff, like with his Navajo jacket and his goddamn cowboy hat, and the ham-handed like conversations about like, we changed the script, brother, and it's like, oh fuck you,
Yeah,
and the shit jokes and the, we're going to Nitro. Oh boy, David Arquette just kind of gets on my nerves. But I will give it up if it holds a soft again. Young Tom got a wrestling movie in his lifetime that was a cornerstone, and so even as bad as it was good to you. I will.
So that was the first. I would say that was the first wrestling movie I got.
Mm-hmm. Okay, all right.
There were movies that included wrestlers, but that was the first movie about wrestling
that incorporated it into the actual script, and they did wrestling in it. Yeah.
So, and as much I wasn't the biggest WCW guy at the time. I grew up tried and true WWF, but it was just cool to see wrestling.
Oh yeah.
In a movie theater.
Yeah.
One, and I just have one more. And
wait, you went to the movie theater to see that?
I did. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. I saw Beyond the Mat in the movie theater.
Okay.
So
I think because it was rated R, I think that
that makes sense. Yeah.
I don't think my parents would take me to see it, but PG-13 I was
you were right up your alley. Just get the ticket.
Or I may have even seen it with like a friend's parents.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it was just like, well, my dad won't take me, but this guy, his parents don't give a shit.
We figured it out. We backdoored our way into this.
The other one I had, and these are all on my like worst list, is Nacho Libre.
That movie stinks.
God,
we just talked about like that great like lucha dream team that we put together, and now it's like, fuck, I gotta be reminded that people like don't really respect Lucha Libre, and they made that piece of fucking junk.
No respect.
Junk.
Horrible. Oh, terrible. Absolute garbage.
Does Jack Black even recognize that in his resume these days, or is he?
I hope not. He would be canceled if he did.
Yeah, it sucks. That's a
bad movie.
Bad movie. Okay, all right. Comedy. I had that listed here. Comedy wise, No Holds Barred. Yeah. I think it took until the mid 2000s, right, or the late 2000s, before we really like got right back into like a good movie that was written about pro wrestling.
I would say probably the best
and
pro wrestling movie,
arguably the best pro wrestling movie, and the most authentic to a scene in pro wrestling is the Darren Aronofsky film, The Wrestler.
Yes.
I will say it's the best. Maybe it's the best pro wrestling movie. It's definitely the best movie about a guy who has a side job in a deli. Because the deli scenes, you want to talk about comedy in pro wrestling movies, the deli scenes are fucking tremendous.
Tremendous.
He's sending the guy out long to catch the potato salad. And the woman, he has the standoff with the woman who says it's, just, could you take a little bit more? Can you add a little bit more? And then he shoves his hand into the blade. Here's your potato salad now. Fuck you, woman. And Todd Barry is the grocery store manager.
Oh my God, yeah.
It filmed here, parts of it filmed right here in our part of New Jersey. It was gritty. And that was, I think, when I did, this is another one I saw in the theaters. I was looking for it to be, and I knew it was going to be good based on like the trailers and the early buzz that it had. But when you see it in the theater, you're like, well, is it going to be too dark? But it was nostalgic. It told the right story, and it was, like I said, it was gritty. It showed independent wrestling, so it wasn't trying to dress up these stages to make them look like 20,000 seat arenas. It was basically saying like it borrowed Ring of Honor's setup, and it borrowed like some of the indie setups that at the time were kind of cathedrals to independent wrestling, and incorporated a lot of the boys that were on the road. Ron Killings, the belle of the ball in WWE right now, had a cameo in The Wrestler. Necro Butcher.
Yeah.
Got to be the Necro Butcher.
I was actually that this is what drew me to this movie so much was at that time I did not watch anything on television.
Okay.
I was strictly independent wrestling. Like I was hardcore every month going to CZW, going to Jersey All Pro Wrestling, and I was actually at the show that they filmed the Necro Butcher scene.
Really?
During, yeah,
I like that.
It was. I want. It was either February or March of like 2009 or 2000. I can't remember the date. It was a show called Lights Camera CCW.
Okay.
And the main event was like they did this whole gimmick during the show where the Necro Butcher is, he's in the movie, so he's now Hollywood Necro Butcher. And like he has like a stunt double and stuff, and he's wrestling Danny Havoc. But like that, I was in the that was all of the wrestling I was consuming.
Good.
Was everything that they were portraying in that. And then at the time, I have friends who were on the lower level independent scene, not like what they're showing in the scenes where Mickey Rourke's character is at these like low level conventions or in these VFW halls. And I know guys who are just starting their career, but are telling me the story of the guy Mickey Rourke is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And so like that movie hit me at like such a perfect time where I hold this movie in such high regard because I feel like it paints the portrayal of Jake the Snake in Beyond the Mat.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
To a T. Mm-hmm. And he gets his moment, and then it all comes apart.
There's some, again, I think there's some really heartbreaking scenes in it. The non-wrestling stuff is certainly, that's where a lot of the drama gets brought in, the relationship with the daughter and the ultimate letdown that she experienced, and, the lashing out, and the complicated relationship with Marissa Tomei's character. Like, it's like if it was just the story of this washed up wrestler that had to, wrestle after he had, a heart condition and all this other stuff. And it's kind of giving you like a pull back the curtain, like dramatization of it. That's one thing, but like adding all of that context about his life and how he just really could not keep it together, and separate his personal life from his wrestling persona. I mean, that's the heartbreaking part of it, when push comes to shove. And that's what I think that's the type of thing that made it Oscar bait and made it, and Mickey Rourke won the Golden Globe for it. So it's certainly, I've mentioned on other podcasts that like, it's a great like sports film. Like when you think about sports films, like it tells like a very like up and down story, and you find yourself, at the end of it, you're rooting for Randy the Ram to, Ram Jam, the Ayatollah, and cut to black, and you're left to speculate, what exactly happened.
And it's just a good movie. And you could plug and play any sport that he was involved in when it comes to a guy that was at the height of his popularity in the 80s and then is trying to make his way back in some sort of way in that profession because he doesn't know anything else.
Yes, right.
You could they've done that in various other. I just think it holds so true to the business of professional wrestling because you see it so much with these guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And it kind of like makes you think of whoever your favorite wrestler was from yesteryear, and then you see them 100 pounds heavier than they were with make face paint on, taking pictures for $10 at a convention, and you're like, I feel for that guy because he knows nothing else.
Yeah.
And he loves it so much that he's trying to hold on.
Or he's got somebody talking him into it, just like in this film where it's like, he would be able to separate and get a job as a security guard or as a, a tech or a medic or whatever, but he just doesn't know how to separate it. Yes, and the convention scene is certainly one that I've walking through those buildings many a time, and I don't know if I've seen Luscious Johnny Valiant taking a nap during a convention, but there's a lot of guys that sort of slouch down and try to get their Z's.
I can't go to those anymore because it like literally it gives me
it's PTSD.
Like, it gives me such bad anxiety for those guys. Because I've seen Lonely Virgil so many times.
Shit.
Rest in peace. But I feel so bad for them.
All right, let's listen. Let's really lighten the mood up and talk about.
I think we're gonna talk about the same one.
Let's talk about one that's really fucking a downer. A good movie, a well put together. The Iron Claw.
Yes. And I would say it's the second best wrestling movie ever.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, it's very much on par with The Wrestler. Yeah. In that you really get to see the, and this is the Iron Claw is based on the Von Erich family, friends of the show, the Von Erich family, and their rise and fall in the Texas area, the world class area. Man, it's just, and I hate to say it, like. It's not a perfect movie, and I think the internet wrestling fans and the longtime wrestling fans, the historians, like, are the ones that like carry the biggest torch against it.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm a historian, and guess what? Nobody wanted to talk about fucking Chris Von Erich. I hate to say it, like Chris Von Erich was not a central character to anybody, and with all apologies to Kev, who's obviously listening, and he's going to write in the comment section. God damn, guys. Really give me a lot of shit. Chris is my brother. But I know it was a cheap way to get my Kevin Von Erich impersonation back on the podcast.
That's a good Kevin Von Erich.
But it tells a tragic story, and it tells a tragic story from the beginning. It's a tragic story. So it never, like, there's some lighthearted parts of it, and there's some really like kind of like feel good elements to it. But at a certain point, I'm in the movie theater watching it, and there was maybe about 7 other people in the movie theater. I went on like not an opening day, but I went like the Saturday morning, like after it opened. Because obviously I thought pro wrestling was still a big draw, and I was like, oh, it's going to be a sellout tonight. I'll go see it in the morning the next day.
Matinee.
That'll be fine. Little matinee. A little, 11 o'clock in the morning movie. Who's going to pass that up? So I go and see it, and there's 7 other people in the theater. And at one point, somebody towards the back was like, and they must have like known a little bit of the story, but not necessarily everything. And they let out like when Kerry Von Erich commits suicide, they let out, oh, come on. Like, sort of like, just let us have 2 seconds where we're not crying our eyes out in this film. Yeah. But there are some really good portrayals of the wrestlers of those times. The guy who played Fritz was fantastic.
Yes.
I thought Zac Efron portrayed it very good.
Did a very good job.
Very good job. The guy who played Ric Flair is hilarious. The guy who played Harley Race was actually really tremendous.
Yes.
But it kind of gives you that sort of, there's a sunny side because Kevin's ultimately like an optimist, at towards the end, and self-reflection is kind of his superpower. But you walk out of the theater and you're like, man, I just felt like he got hit with a ton of bricks, and it's like it's an affecting film. And I think that's where it sort of like has that kinship to The Wrestler, where you don't feel good walking out of The Wrestler because you're like, well, I don't know what happens to Randy the Ram. Like, I don't know if he dies or wins, or if he ever figured out a way to stop wrestling, if he won and survived the match. And then you're also, like, at the end of, you know, the Iron Claw, you're sort of like, well, I know Kev's all right, but, like, they kind of cut it off in the early 90s, and now we're 40 years later, like, you know, you have some, like, at least, like, a little bit of a context about how, you know, he had the kids, he moved to Hawaii, and life got better, but it's sort of like, but was it really better for Kev? Like, you know, that's the sad part, is that it sort of, like, it makes you go back and do the research of real life, and you learn, well, he's okay, but, man, they still had tragedy.
Everyone else is dead.
Yeah, yeah. So, bummer, but...
It is. But the one thing that doesn't have is, like, the wrestler starts where he's kind of already past his prime. At least in this one, you get the come up. So if you
for sure,
if you don't know the story going into it, and you don't know the history of the Von Erich family and the horrible tragedy that is befallen upon them, at least you get the 45 minutes at the beginning of the movie of the come up and these guys becoming these major superstars before they just shove three tragic deaths in a 30-minute span.
Well, and also, like, I think it got a lot of credit and a lot of good press when they were first, like, promoting the movie. Like, they did talk to Chavo Guerrero a lot.
Yeah.
And Chavo was the stunt coordinator, and the in-ring stuff looks really fucking good.
Yes. That's what I wanted to say, is this may have been the best in-ring quality.
Yes.
When it comes to anything that's been done cinema-wise, is they really focused on the attention to detail, and the actors train their ass off to actually, you know, get in incredible shape.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, and second of all, like, do their due diligence and try and make everything look
as it was and authentic.
As good as they can make it look.
So that's another good point, is that you see, and I do like the promotional stuff that you saw for the movie where, you know, the three of the four guys playing the brothers, like, all side by side, that's kind of shines up the Von Erichs, right? Like, because you say to yourself, like, man, all of these, like, high level, like, good looking Hollywood actors, like, in their 20s and 30s, that played the Von Erichs in this movie, and then you look back at the promo pictures from World Class.
Yeah. And you're like,
it's
that's
like,
pretty good. That's
fucking Von Erichs could have been in goddamn movies.
Yeah. Pretty spot on.
Yeah.
Had Kevin not had such a mumbly mouth, he could probably have been,
well, listen,
a superstar.
Kerry wasn't a slick promo guy either, but he could turn it on when he needed to. Dave was still the best out of the whole group, but just look wise, just like if you're looking at a poster, and you pose these guys from the Iron Claw up against those guys from the Von Erichs, you're like, they really, like, it. It kind of, like, throws your head into a little bit of a pretzel where it's like, what could have been? Like, imagine if those guys had survived and maybe future, you know, idea for a future podcast. If they had survived, like, and branched out beyond World Class, like, what could have been?
Yeah.
You know, I know that Vince, like, there was always an interest that Vince had for the brothers, and it picked up steam just before Dave died, because Vince was looking at that expansion, and he had gone down to talk to Fritz, and Fritz was like, I'm not selling, because this is where my boys wrestle, and this is our home. Good luck convincing our fans in Dallas that you're a better company than us. But even into, like, 84, like, after Dave died, like, Vince still had it in his brain, like, all right, well, you know, if I do expand, eventually these guys are going to come on board, right? But yeah, like, getting back to the Iron Claw, and not so much about the Von Erichs, it's like the portrayals are great. the in-ring stuff really holds up, and I hope it's a lesson the next time somebody wants to make a pro wrestling movie, and they have, like, and I think that's really what stepped up. Like when you look at stuff like the Queen of the, what was the
I was going to touch on that.
Matsumoto, Queen of Villains.
Queen of Villains.
Queen of Villains.
Oh, I
like,
thought you meant the other
and the
one.
way the in-ring stuff was choreographed in that.
Yeah.
Did you see the Queen of the Ring? The was that the Mildred Burke?
So I was going to bring that up because in preparing for this episode, I know that movie just recently came out. So I started watching it the other day, and I got about 30 minutes into it and shut it off.
Really?
Yeah, I did not care for it.
I had heard that it does not play well, and it is a period piece from what, like the 30s and 40s.
Yeah. So, because it like starts as like she's a carny wrestler, but the problem that I had was I didn't get enough into the wrestling portion of the movie to like have a critique on how that was done.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It was just a little too the way it was too heavy-handed.
I get you. Yep.
They just like okay, so the critique that people have with the Von Erich movie is the historical timeline of things, right?
Yeah.
Of the Iron Claw. This, I have no context for the historical timeline of how any of this happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But, like, the first scene is she's sitting in the crowd watching wrestling for the first time. She's never seen wrestling before. And 20 minutes later, she's like the biggest women's wrestler in the world.
Okay.
And I'm just like,
we're in a time machine immediately.
Yeah, I'm like, what is happening right now?
Well, first of all, if it was that time frame, there's no way they're letting a little girl sit in a fucking wrestling crowd. Like,
yeah,
good luck getting that over. Women couldn't go.
Oh no. So like, she was a full grown woman.
Oh, grown
she wasn't
woman,
like a little girl.
Oh, that's even less realistic. I don't think they let women into the garden until like the late 50s.
She's like no, I mean, I don't. It definitely wasn't in the garden. This was like in like some shed in Oklahoma.
Oh, of course, yeah.
But like but the whole thing, I didn't like the way that they portrayed this story.
Okay.
So I just didn't. I couldn't. It's 2.5 hours long. I was 30 minutes in, and I'm like, I got 2 hours left. I can't do this.
That kind of wears me out. Yeah, just the thought of it, kind of like, all right, I want to take a nap through this.
Yeah. So whatever.
It's based off a book, and the book has always gotten like really great reviews. The book was the Queen of the Ring: Sex, Muscles, Diamonds, and the Making of an American Legend. And it was based off of actually Mildred Burke's either diary or manuscripts.
Yeah.
And I've always heard good things about the book. Like, the book was like written up a bunch in Wrestling Observer and you know, from the historians that really wanted to shine it up. Like, in the ramp up, they knew that the movie was coming out. They were like, you got to read the book before you get anywhere close to the movie. So maybe that's the case. Maybe it does read as a better book than it does as a theatrical.
So I would say that I'm sure that if I sat down and heard the story first of her actual tale from whatever she was doing into becoming like one of the first and most influential women's wrestlers of all time, of course.
Yeah.
But I think the theatrical representation and some of the acting and the over the top stuff that they do, it just didn't play well on film.
Okay.
As someone who like enjoys like good movies, I would say that this isn't like a well acted movie. Like,
okay, all right, I can see that.
Like, Walton Goggins is in it, but he's like this like super over the top like Southern promoter and it's almost like a caricature.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it just it doesn't play well. I'm sure that the story is great. I'm sure that the book is great.
yeah.
The
Yeah.
movie just didn't
It didn't
translate.
hit. Okay.
Yeah.
What is it on? Not to give it a plug, but like, is it on like Amazon or?
I've I found it on the dark web.
Okay. All right. Ooh. Kayfabe, Tom. Kayfabe.
No, I don't know what it's on.
Okay. All right.
I just found it on like
Well, I'm
a
sure.
website.
Yeah. Since it had a little run in the theater, I'm sure it'll be on some streamer in the summer and the fall and all that stuff.
Yeah, you could pay for it on Amazon Prime.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think I'm going to.
Yeah,
I'll wait
I
for
would.
that to be freebie. Before we go, is there anything else that sort of that still hits you in the theaters?
So the only other one, and again, I didn't see it, but I've heard good and bad things, was the wrestling with my family.
Oh, I did see that.
Movie.
Yeah.
How was that?
All right. So it is very much it's cornier, and you could tell this is a WWE production.
Yeah,
'Cause they really lay into the this guy's the booker and this guy's the and it's Rocky's production company. I mean, there's parts that are good, and I think it's well acted. That's the one thing I will say. I think like the Florence Pugh and the guy who played the brother did a very good job in their roles. There's just so much like over the top bullshit that is surrounding it that you're sort of like, if it's not her having sort of a dramatic scene in the movie or what would look to be like a real reaction to something, you're flooded with corny. Oh, they run into The Rock in the hallway at a WWE show, and they're like marking out for him, and it's like, first of all, they probably wouldn't be able to like just wander around backstage, even if they were hired as extras. Yeah. Like they're not allowed to like wander around backstage like that. Yeah. But then when they go back to England for the few times that they do, like they really ham up the home life and the Knight families, their promotion and all of that, and they lean heavy into like this is the dream, and she watched WWE growing up, and her and her brother always wanted to do this, and that's cute. And the original documentary is like that's definitely like real like this is where the characters are carved out of, and that's where The Rock basically got the inspiration to do it. He was like, he watched this, and you can see there's a real connection. So track down the documentary that was made about the Knight family. I think it was produced by the BBC. And that's the source material. That's really good. But at the end of it, you're kind of like left with a, well, that got released to theaters. Okay. But
So that's the same feeling I had about Queen of the Ring.
Okay, all right.
It's like that. Just exactly what you said is probably.
It's not really worth tracking down, but if you catch it, like I caught it, like
if you come across it,
I caught it on like a Saturday afternoon on Comedy Central when it was raining out, and I was like, all right, I'll just sit here and watch this for a while.
If in 10 years it stumbles across your TNT on a Sunday afternoon when you're hungover, I guess take the 4 hours it's going to take with commercials.
With commercials, right? That's a very good point. You do got to get bombarded with commercials. There is an indie movie that I haven't seen, but it's recommended. And I actually worked with a guy who was one of the producers on it. Came out in 2019. It's called The Peanut Butter Falcon.
So I have heard of this.
And this guy, like
Shia LaBeouf.
Shia LaBeouf. Well, that's not the guy that I know. But like I know one of the one of the producers. And like I did business with him. He was a documentarian that was based out of, and this was his first time like collaborating on a script and producing a technically a theatrical independent movie. But this one's got really good reviews. McFoley's in it. Jake Roberts is in it. It's about a boy with Down syndrome that kind of runs away from the group home that he's in to go be trained because he's a huge pro wrestling fan and he wants to create a character. And it shows him kind of pursuing that, and then these stumbling blocks with his family trying to convince him to go back. Again, I just reading the synopsis, but I never found it because some of these movies are kind of tough to find.
Yeah.
Even in
I
the
think
streaming
it may be
world.
On Netflix.
It could, if it is, then it's
it was
probably
at
worth
some
watching.
point. Yeah, it was at some point. It's either on Netflix or Amazon. I know I've seen it somewhere.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway was the guys from the world of wrestling that were part of it were like really good, authentic portrayals of, again, the old broken down wrestler prototype. And
I've heard of this movie. I did not know that it was. I just heard the name and heard that it was a very good movie. I didn't know that it was about pro wrestling. So
yeah.
I'll definitely search that out.
Yeah, it's probably worth searching and looking into for both of us. So, I guess we're gonna have to draw the curtain on this one. I think.
Yeah. I had like so I.
Okay.
I had,
you did.
I only had I had 3 other docs, and I'm just gonna
docs. Yeah. Okay.
I'm just gonna name them off real fast. The Andre the Giant doc on HBO I thought was incredible.
Oh, the Bill Simmons one.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was a incredible.
Yes.
Like just character piece.
Another heartbreaker when you think
yeah.
about the condition that he was in and the like his struggles getting out of like France originally and leaving his family. Yeah, that's a great one.
That was a really good one.
Yeah.
Kind of in a company to be on the mat to kind of lift your spirits a bit was the resurrection of Jake the Snake. That was a really well done piece about how DDP kind of
saved his life.
Yeah, brought Jake back to prominence, and then a fun one is You Can't Kill David Arquette, which
I actually did, despite my aversion to David Arquette, I did really like that one.
It's a fun movie that just kind of years after all of the hate that he got for winning the WCW title, he tries to go back after his acting career has kind of gone into the toilet. He goes back and gets onto the independent scene, and it's just like a fun watch because it's a guy that's literally done it all in Hollywood, and now he's going back and grinding on the indie scene, and it's fun.
He was passionate for sure.
Yeah. It's like you'll see all of your favorite indie guys on there, and also every dollar that he makes doing anything wrestling wise, he donates to the Pillman, and the Owen Hart, which is also like an awesome thing. So that's another fun one. But
him as an actor and a personality get on my nerves, but his connection to and his really reverent love for pro wrestling it's obvious and it is admirable, because this, especially with this documentary, there are a lot of people in his life that are like, why would you even consider this? Like, you could do voice acting, you could do like, you've got other stuff, or you've got enough family money and so on and so forth. And he was basically like, no, I had a chance to do it to promote a movie, but I really wanted to give it a second chance. And like, it's, again, that's sort of like, that's a bit inspirational. And he, boy, there's some really horror scenes in that, which remind you that like, as trained as he got, he never got
properly
100% smartened up, because there were guys, Nick Gage.
Nick Gage almost killing him is my favorite part of that movie.
Nick Gage isn't going to let up. Like, he's going to do everything that he can to make this look as realistic as possible. And you're choosing death at that point. So buckle up. But no,
Yep.
it's a fun movie. You're right. Like it's a basically like a flip book of all of your favorite 2017 through 2019 indie workers. So yeah, I think that was on Hulu, or it still is on Hulu.
Yeah, it's on one of those.
So you can check that
streaming
out.
platforms.
All right. Now are the lights up? Or did we?
Oh
leave
yeah, that's
anything?
it. That's it. No,
The one thing,
that's
actually, the one thing we didn't talk about, just on as a brief, like this is like that extra Marvel scene after the credits. Beyond the Mat, we didn't talk about Dennis Stamp.
Dennis Stamp, yeah.
And he would turn around and say like, "Oh, you guys did all this, and I wasn't even booked." But I want you to be the referee. I'm telling you, you're in the main event.
I'm not booked. I'm not doing it.
I'll see if I show up that day. And then he shows up. Dennis Stamp.
Jumping up and down on a trampoline.
Trampoline weights. What a fucking boy. Dennis Stamp still alive?
I hope so.
I'll track him down. Let's get him on the podcast.
I hope he lives forever.
I'm gonna find him on social media, and I'm gonna send him this and be like, "Listen to the end. You get a little. You get a shout out, Dennis. AWA
You're
jobber
booked.
extraordinaire, Dennis Stamp.
Dennis, you're booked.
You're booked. You can be booked. Dennis Stamp. If anybody's listening or anybody's connected to Dennis Stamp, and he is still alive, tell him he has an open invitation anytime. We will drop anything to record with Dennis Stamp, and get him on. This is the new segment on the show where we open it up. Dennis Stamp, Kevin Von Erich can come on our show anytime.
Career retrospective, Dennis Stamp.
If T.J. Khan is still alive, we want to talk to him about Body Slam. No Terry Jeans, but anyway, that's about it. We're driving away from the pro wrestling theater, and I think this is a good topic, and I hope in future episodes maybe we can get into how terrible wrestling is portrayed on television, or how good it is sometimes.
Now that is a whole nother monster.
That could be. So we're gonna sign off. For Tom, this is Mike. We hope you have a great night, and we will see you at the matches.